Welcome to another episode of 6 Degrees of Separation in Sci-Fi and Fantasy. In this episode, we will go from the 1960s British TV series Thunderbirds to the 2019 Godzilla, King of the Monsters. Produced between 1964 and 1966, Thunderbirds was the fourth production of AP Films, later named Century 21 Productions, that combined electronic marionette puppetry dubbed Super Marionation with scaled model special effects and a little live action as well. Thunderbirds follows the heroic missions of the International Rescue, headed by their fleet of Thunderbird vehicles located at a secret base in the Pacific Ocean. But it was the vision of our first degree of separation that brought the Thunderbirds to life, Sylvia and Jerry Anderson. The Andersons co-created and co-wrote Thunderbirds, but each had their own separate roles in the show's development. Jerry, co-founder of AP Films, was the executive producer overseeing all creative aspects of the show, and Sylvia did costume designs, character development, and directed voiceovers, which she contributed several voices, including that of Lady Penelope.
Get out the Rolls Royce. I'll call the airport. We're taking off for America with Fab 1 immediately.
For decades, fans have continued to enjoy the adventures of Thunderbirds with a spin-off, remakes, and movies. The Andersons continued working together until their divorce in 1980, but before parting ways, the Andersons added another cult classic to their resume, Space 1999. Set in the year 1999, Space 1999 tells the stories of the crew of Moonbase Alpha, located on the Earth's moon, which is tossed into the far reaches of space away from all humanity when a nuclear explosion takes the moon out of its orbit.
The moon is going out of the Earth's orbit. That explosion, it has pushed us out of the Earth's orbit.
Starring Martin Landau and Barbara Bain, Space 1999 was plagued with a number of issues, including disagreements with storylines and scripts, union disputes, technical difficulties, and Britain's mandatory 3-day workweek, which all contributed to its cancellation after just 2 seasons. There are a number of guest actors of Space 1999 who continued exploring the stars in the Star Wars films. Today, Space 1999 is considered a cult classic in sci-fi TV, and one thing that makes it such a cult classic is its special effects, which leads us to our second degree of separation, Space 1999 special effects artist Brian Johnson. Born Brian Johncock, Brian began his long award-winning career working on productions such as X the Unknown, The Day the Earth Caught Fire, and with the Andersons on both the Thunderbirds and Space 1999. George Lucas was so impressed with Brian's work on Space 1999, he wanted Brian to supervise the effects for his 1977 epic Star Wars: A New Hope. But due to his commitment to Space 1999, it took Brian another 3 years for him to join Lucas on the dark side in creating effects for Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back. In 1979, Brian went on to contribute his skills to the production that let the world know, in space, no one can hear you scream. Alien, directed by Ridley Scott, starring Tom Skerritt, the late Ian Holm, and Sigourney Weaver, brought us the most terrifying xenomorph the galaxy has ever seen, with acid for blood. While investigating a transmission from the moon LV-426, the crew of the Nostromo discovers hundreds of egg-shaped objects that contained what was later to be known as facehuggers. After the crew member Kane, played by the late John Hurt, is infected, an alien bursts through his chest in one of cinema's most classic and horrific scenes.
Oh, God!
Ever wonder why the egg on the original Alien poster looks more like a regular egg and not the egg of a facehugger? Well, it's because hen eggs were used when filming the scene of the alien nest. And before the final effects were added in post-production, which gave the eggs their transparent face-hugging look, the original trailer was cut, which used a hen egg. Subsequently, the poster was designed to match the trailer. Alien, causing nightmares for many, went on to be a box office hit and accumulated several awards. And Bryan Johnson went on to win an Oscar for Best Visual Effects, along with our third degree of separation, designer of the Acid for Blood xenomorph, world-renowned artist, industrial designer, and to some, an extraterrestrial himself, H.R. Giger. At an early age, Switzerland-born Giger was encouraged by his father to follow him in his footsteps and become a pharmacist. Thankfully, due to Giger's relentless passion for art, the world didn't get another pharmacist, but a unique look into a surrealistic world with such works as Lee, and the inspiration behind Alien xenomorph Necronom 4. Giger not only designed the alien in all its stages, from egg to adult, he designed its environment and the derelict spacecraft. In the early 90s, Giger was asked to design the Batmobile for Batman Forever, but deemed too radical, Giger's design was never used. In 1995, Giger contributed his art and designing skills to the sci-fi horror movie Species, starring Natasha Henstridge in her debut role. Species follows a group of scientists as they try to track down an alien-human hybrid that escapes the lab in which she was created. Species made a little over triple at the box office and earned an average rating. And when it comes to rating films, most moviegoers usually base their reviews on the script, acting, graphics, and effects, but there are a number of aspects that fall under the radar to most, which brings us to our fourth degree of separation, Species editor, Academy Award winner Conrad Buff IV. Starting out in visual effects, Conrad worked on Battlestar Galactica, Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back, and E.T., to name a few. And in 1983, he began his editing career with the documentary classic Creatures, Return of the Jedi. However, it wasn't sci-fi that earned Conrad his Oscar, but The Heart of the Ocean, An Iceberg, and the doomed Titanic. Because of budget concerns, one scene in Species almost didn't make it to the can, let alone the edit room, the train dream scene. But since Giger was adamant on having the scene in the film, he put up $100,000 of his own money for its production. Prior to Species, Conrad joined the franchise that put man against machine as editor of Terminator 2 Judgment Day, and then helped continue the ultimate fight for humanity's survival, editing 2009's Terminator Salvation. Starring Christian Bale and Sam Worthington with the late Anton Yelchin, Terminator Salvation is the fourth installment of the Terminator franchise. Unlike its predecessors, which have Terminators traveling back in time to ensure Skynet's annihilation of humanity, Terminator Salvation is post-apocalyptic, where most of the human race has already been wiped out, and the Resistance is humanity's last hope for survival. The Terminator, Terminator 2 Judgment Day, and Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines was the first trilogy of the franchise. Terminator Salvation was intended to be the first installment of the second trilogy, but the sequels were never developed because the Halcyon Company, who owned the rights to Terminator, went bankrupt. The rights were then sold to Skydance Productions, which tried creating its own Terminator trilogy with Terminator Genisys, which was ultimately terminated itself. Then 2019 brought back the mother of the Resistance and a seasoned Terminator in Terminator Dark Fate, and only time will tell the fate of its sequels. Now, even though Terminator Salvation wasn't as popular as its predecessors, most would agree it did deliver on action and effects, especially in this action-packed scene, which gives us our fifth degree of separation, the Rio Grande Gorge Bridge in Taos, New Mexico. Built between 1963 and 1965, the Rio Grande Gorge Bridge spans over 1,200 feet and is approximately 600 feet high, which makes it one of the highest bridges in the US. During the construction of the Rio Grande Gorge Bridge, it was referred to as the Bridge to Nowhere because there was no money available to build the road on the other side. But in 2011, getting to the other side of the Rio Grande Gorge Bridge while outrunning federal agents was just one of the explosive scenes in the hilarious movie Paul. This star-filled tribute to Steven Spielberg movies and other sci-fi films loved by the writers and stars Simon Pegg and Nick Frost follows two sci-fi geeks after they encounter the alien Paul, voiced by Seth Rogen, who has escaped from the government's captivity.
I'm Paul!
After coming up with the idea for Paul, Pegg and Frost took a road trip across the US and added their experiences to the movie. Hopefully explosions weren't part of it. Sigourney Weaver, who played the big guy, called Paul a love letter to sci-fi fans.
Get away from her, you bitch! Ow! Ow!
So, before we explore our sixth and final degree of separation, let's recap.
It's probing time.
Our first degree, 1960s Thunderbirds creators Jerry and Sylvia Anderson, who also created the 1970s Space 1999. Our second degree, Space 1999's special effects artist Brian Johnson, who won an Oscar for Best Visual Effects for the 1979 Alien, along with our third degree, Alien xenomorph designer and maybe extraterrestrial himself, H.R. Giger, who also designed the alien-human hybrid for the 1995's Species. Our fourth degree species editor, Academy Award winner Conrad Buff IV, who edited The War Against the Machines, Terminator Salvation. The fifth degree, the Rio Grande Gorge Bridge, where they raced across to escape the machines in Terminator Salvation and the FBI in the hilarious Paul. Now, onto our sixth degree of separation. Paul's cinematographer, Academy Award and BAFTA Award nominee, Lawrence Cher. Lawrence is known for the Hangover series and other comedies and dramas, but Lawrence worked in the world of sci-fi and fantasy on the 1999 Shark Attack, 2007 Cavemen TV series, and the 2019 Godzilla King of the Monsters. This star-filled, action-packed fantasy is the 35th film of the Godzilla franchise, and the third produced by Hollywood. Sequel to 2014's Godzilla and the second installment of the Godzilla trilogy, Godzilla King of the Monsters opened to a disappointing box office and mixed reviews. Moviegoers loved the cinematography, visual effects, action sequences, and music score, but felt Godzilla King of the Monsters fell short on plot and characters, and the pacing was slow and ran too long. And as in all other Godzilla films, moviegoers felt Godzilla didn't have enough screen time. Since Godzilla roared onto the big screen in 1954, he has died 4 times. However, since Godzilla has regenerative capabilities, if only one cell survives, then he'll be able to come back to his full atomic breathing self, which has some wondering, did Godzilla ever really die? This year, Part 3 of the trilogy Godzilla vs. Kong is set to be released. So, as they say, the third time's a charm. But we'll just have to wait and see. Until then, thanks for joining us for another episode of 6 Degrees of Separation in Sci-Fi and Fantasy. And don't forget to subscribe so you can see new episodes as they're posted.